to come here and talk today. The first question that they asked me was, what are you? And my answer to that, because this is a public forum, is chef. But I'm also a lot of other things. I'm a mother, a daughter, a sister. I'm a member of my community. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a boss. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about my story. I come from a small town in the Central Valley, Fireball. It was a town of 3,000. It's a little ag town. It was comprised of mainly the wealthy farm owners and the immigrant farmers, immigrant workers who farmed those farms. So it was a really racially and economically divided community. My grandparents were born in Mexico, and so I was very much identified with the Mexican community, grew up with Mexican food. It's my soul food. In fact, my restaurant, Mijita, is named, my grandmother called me Mijita, so that's what that comes from. My family were farmers. They farmed cotton, sugar beets, and rice. It was anything but organic. Lots and lots of chemicals, and we grew up with lots of chemicals all around us all the time. In fact, if you mentioned organic at the dinner table, my father was really never very happy about that. My family loved food. Everyone cooked. My other grandfather was from Louisiana, and he had a very strong cooking tradition. So we hunted, we foraged, we cooked together. All of our gatherings were around food, and that's where I got my start. Everyone in my family cooks very well. I started at 3 years old baking. And this is a picture of me in my grandmother's kitchen making tortillas when I was about 7. And my grandfather actually made a little, that's not my rolling pin, I had a little tiny one that he cut from a broomstick so it would fit my little hands. I was pretty precocious. The funny story, I used to argue with my cousins about the best way to mix the cookie dough. And I would say all the time, you're going to make tough cookies if you do it like that. And they always said, have you ever seen a tough cookie? Well, I was right about something, which was that I had an eye for detail. I graduated high school a year early at 16, and I headed off to UC Santa Cruz. I didn't stay there very long, so don't get too excited. I immediately began to sort of struggle, and I was sort of looking at the world around me, and my cousins were graduating from UC Berkeley and anthropology, history, psychology degrees, and they were still not really figuring out what they wanted to do in life. They were going on to graduate school, and they didn't have jobs, and so I sort of looked at this, and I thought, okay, well, that doesn't really make sense. And I turned to two of my passions, cooking and skiing. And I said, okay, well, it was a little bit of an act of rebellion, but I dropped out of school, and I said, if I want to be a ski bum, and if I learn to cook, I'll be able to support myself, because it wasn't a very popular decision with my parents. So anyway, I did research into culinary schools, and I found a great French chef in Los Angeles to work for. This was 1983. And he was just over from France, amazing, cutting-edge food. And he took me on as an apprentice, and he said, what you really need to do is go to France. So I spent about 2 years with him, and then at 19, off I went to France. I landed a job in a 3-star Michelin restaurant, and I stayed there for about 2 years. And in those restaurants, I was always the only woman amongst a group of young men, 17 to 25. There'd be about 25 of us in the kitchen. I was always the only woman, and I was also the only American in all but one of those restaurants. Sometimes I sort of marvel that I was able to make it through that, and when I'm asked by young women, how did you do that, or, how do you sort of overcome your challenges being a woman in a male-dominated industry, I didn't think about being a woman. It wasn't, I thought about my craft, and I thought about what I wanted to get from my experience there, and so I never thought of it as an impediment. I just went forth and took what I wanted. I came back to the States. I opened 4 restaurants for other people, and then I set about opening what is now 6 restaurants for myself. I opened Jardiniere in 1997, and this was my first opportunity to really do it my way. I had been trained in French kitchens, which were really kind of a bastion of bad behavior. The management style was tyranny and fear. I was kind of a tyrant myself because that's what I had been taught, and that's what was effective. And I quickly figured out that terrorizing my waiters was really going to have an ill effect on my guests. And so I stopped doing that, and I realized that if I was really good to them, that was going to reverberate to my guests. And it's true. One of the great compliments I hear about Jardiniere all the time is how lovely my wait staff is and how happy they are. And so that really works. And I also, the cooks, the happier they are, the better food they make. I also had always had a bit of an issue with the elitism of what I did. Fine dining, it really is for a very elite group of people, the top 1% that we hear about all the time now. And that always kind of bothered me, because on the other end of that spectrum, you have the people that are washing the dishes, that are cooking the food, that are prep cooks. And these are immigrants primarily, and people who don't really have a lot of resources. They make less than minimum wage in some places, not in my restaurant. In fact, we always paid a living wage even prior to the mandate by San Francisco. We always had health care available to all of our employees. And that was, in restaurants, that was almost unheard of. I mean, there was not insurance available to people in restaurants. I did ESL classes for my non-English speaking employees. And I also set about greening the restaurant. I imagined one day sort of the pile of refuse from a day in a restaurant. And most of that stuff was going to landfill. And so we started a greening project where we were looking at what we could do. And unfortunately, we had the support of San Francisco at that point. And we started greening, and we went from 100% landfill to 90% renewables, 10% landfill. Thanks. Thank you. So those are just some of the things that I learned over the years, that things I did want to do, things I didn't want to do, the things that were important to me. Question that comes up a lot in my industry is, where are all the women? Well, here you see that it's true. This was an event about 3 years ago in New York, and it was a tribute to French chefs, so maybe it's appropriate that they're all men. But I kind of consider myself a French chef too, but there I am in the middle. And I can't really answer that question. It would be a very, very long explanation. So I'll talk a little bit about it. But what I have done in my own restaurant, because I haven't had a lot of females that have come through my kitchen, unfortunately, is I've really tried to take the young men, and this is a picture from a few weeks ago where we did the 15-year anniversary of the restaurant. I've tried to take the young men that have come through my kitchen and teach them compassion, empathy, to support women in the industry. And I know that all of these chefs are fantastic, supportive advocates of women, and have learned something from me and taken that into their own businesses. So all of these guys work someplace else now, and they're doing great things. Here are all the women. Basically, we, as a community, women in this industry, we really have put together sort of an informal network where we reach out to each other. And I became friends, 15 years ago with one of the women in this picture. And she became she'd been in the business 10 years before me, and she became this incredible mentor. I didn't ever work for her, but she shared with me her business advice and her support and the things that helped me get to the place I'm in today. And then as sort of time went on and I saw other young women coming up through the industry, I reached out to them and gave back in that way. And so there's this informal network that we've created where we can call each other up. And it's really easy and it works brilliantly. And I can say that I actually don't have that many men in the industry. I have only one who I can kind of rely on in the same way. None of my mentors, by the way. Here's a picture of us having fun. So we get together, we travel, we eat. This picture is taken in Mongolia, and we went on this amazing trip hunting. And you can see that I'm the only one in the picture that actually knows how to hold a gun. The others look like they're props. But we have a great time. We've gone to Mexico City. We've done lots of really great things, and we spend quality time together sharing our stories and our businesses and exchanging ideas. I couldn't have imagined when I started cooking 28 years ago that one day chefs would be considered celebrities. And I'm still really startled when people refer to me that way. It's not, being up here today is very uncomfortable for me. Fundraising, being able to support nonprofits that I believe in. This is La Cocina. It's the Mission in San Francisco. It's a business incubator for low-income and primarily immigrant women. And we give them the resources to take a passion, which is a passion for making some kind of food product, and turn that into a business. And I've been on the board. I raised $35,000 for them on Top Chef Masters. And this is really like, thank you. This is kind of my life's work. I mean, this is a full circle, being in a position to give back and to make other people's dreams come true.